This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
So we're back, and I kind of want to start off with, as usual, all the things I got wrong.
Did we get some corrections this week?
Yeah, in particular, I think in one of the previous episodes we were talking about the Drakkar that shows up, and we said Thomas was the warder who killed him. It was not Thomas. Thomas is Varen's warder.
Okay. It
was actually a guy named James.
Oh, I remember the name now that you say that.
Yeah, so he's just an older guy. He's not a dark friend.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We were taking a guess.
Yeah, we took a guess, and I suggested Thomas, and you ran with it, so.
Yeah.
No, well. There's definitely, thank you for correcting us. Atropos, 2012.
Thanks, man. Or lady.
Yeah, we appreciate the follow-up.
We do really like the corrections and doing this, kind of starting to make it into like a section of the podcast. I mean, we don't always get enough corrections to do it every time, but
we certainly make some mistakes, but
yeah, of course.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
I think we know the series pretty good, I think. Let me check back and see if there's any corrections from the previous. Oh, yeah, here's another one. We're talking about Eldrine.
Okay.
Like back in the
Manetheren.
Someone said she probably wasn't using an Angreal because they have buffers to prevent you from burning yourself out.
Oh, that's a good point. I feel like I remember that. Yeah.
Unless the only thought I had was that maybe she's using a Angreal like Kalendor that doesn't have a buffer.
Yeah, I guess that would be the only way.
And we do know like Kalendor was manufactured poorly, and there were other Angreal that had the same possible flaw in them. So we know that flaw is not unique. So it could be possible that she was using a flawed Angreal.
Yeah, I just assumed that she must have been using one because to do something like what we see Rand do in the Stone of Tyr a little later, but to just do it on an even bigger scale. I mean, he does that while holding Kalendor. Yeah, I don't know.
The only other thing she could be in a circle, but that would have the same buffering issue. You can't overdraw the other people in your circle. She may have just been really, really powerful.
Yeah. Also, legends fade to myth.
Right. Well, the city is gone, so that's not totally mythic. There was a city, and now there's not. It's flat. I think that's it. Those are all the follow-ups I had.
Cool. If that was it for 2 episodes, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah. There's a few other things I could say. There's definitely some good discussions on the Reddit thread, but I think those are the only like blatant things we got wrong. Do we want to get started on the chapter? Anything
should we jump right in now?
Yeah, I think so. Because they didn't jump into the Taren, but the ferry sure did.
Yeah, or sure will.
Yeah.
The chapter is called Across the Taren, and it's the chapter heading is The Flame of Tar-Valon. At the beginning of this chapter, we see the party arriving in a sleeping Taren ferry that's covered in a thick fog.
Moraine's just saying to Lan, you must handle it. He'll remember too much as it is, and there's no help for it. If I stand out in his thoughts, ... So she's going in, and she wants to hide the fact that she's Aes Sedai from Master Hightower, because she knows what's going to happen. They're going to destroy the ferry going in.
She already knows that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't had the thought, but that totally makes sense. I was wondering while I was reading through this, is the ferry the only way across?
The ferry is the only way across.
I mean, other than, I suppose, boats, but...
But there really aren't any boats, so you do have to build one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the river it's really too swift for boats. Like, at this point, it's coming down out of the mountains. It's probably pretty rocky. I don't think there's a lot of... I don't know how deep it is at this point, because it's still pretty close to the source.
Rand has the thought that he's heard you can't swim across it. It's too dangerous.
Yeah, so I think that's mostly because it's turbulent.
It's like unpredictable.
So I imagine that there's not a lot of boats. It's probably not very usable as just transport up and down the river, and they have the ferry to get across it. So she knows what she's doing is cutting off the route the Trollocs and the Myrddraal have to chase them too, because they don't cross water.
Yeah. How do they eventually cross? Well, the Myrddraal does.
They don't like to cross. I assume they eventually like get a boat or build something, or who knows how they get across things. They don't show it on camera, but we do know it delays them, and they don't like to cross it.
Yeah.
And they can't really force anyone to. They won't force the Trollocs to swim, so it's got to be in boats of some sort or a ferry. What she's saying is to Lan, hey, you're gonna have to talk to him. You're gonna have to pay him because I don't want to stand out in his thoughts because I don't want him to know that I'm Aes Sedai.
Yeah. They'd accidentally pass on the information.
Totally. So they walk into this town, and Lan, he sort of tells all the boys, yeah, show off your weapons here, will you?
Yeah, I wrote that down as Lan gives silent instruction to the boys on looking threatening.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually say anything. He just pulls Perrin's cloak to the side and like tucks it behind his axe, and the other boys figure it out.
He's like, show off your weapons.
Yeah.
Because he's coming back with 6 guys.
Right.
And he knows they've got a lot of money on them. So I think Lan's a little worried about getting robbed here.
Oh, there's a good quote on that. Hightower seemed far from amused. This is right after what we were just talking about. He stared at Tom, then cleared his throat loudly. There was mention made of more gold for the crossing. He looked around at them again, a sullen, sly look. What you gave me before is in a safe place now, you hear? It's none of it where you can get at it. The rest of the gold, Lan told him, goes into your hand when we are on the other side.
So yeah, you can see he's pretty greedy there.
Yeah, there's a negotiation. I was actually looking for, I think Perrin says something later to Lan. Is what I was thinking of. Something like, I didn't think do you think they would actually have? And Lan says something like, when men think they can't be seen, they're...
Oh yeah, something about the actions in the fog and the dark and like the consequences. Yeah, that's a great quote. Hopefully we'll come across that when we get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I was trying to think, like, why is Lan a little more cautious? I just think the Taren Ferry, it deals with the outside world. It's sort of the same as the other villages, but they are sort of the gate between the 2 rivers and the rest of the world.
Right. This huge agrarian area. And so it's probably more like a trading hub, like the final place you would go to do something like buy 2 rivers to back. Right.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of peddlers that don't get much further. They just get to Taren Ferry, buy whatever it is they need, and then take off.
Yeah.
Because who needs to travel for, if it's a 2-day ride, it's probably a week in a peddler's wagon.
Right. So it's only worth it if you have the time, and I'm sure you get better prices from the farmers directly.
Sure.
That's probably why anyone ever goes down there.
Yeah. But not very many.
Yeah.
Unless they really want that to back.
So they get on and cross without much action. Then there's this interesting moment where they're all getting off of the ferry, and Master Hightower says something like, wait a minute now, like, where's that gold we were talking about? And Moiraine says, yeah, you can have it, like, or here it is. And also I'm going to give a coin to each of your men. And I just wondered if she's using the same trick again. Why does she have to give each of them a silver coin?
You know what I wrote down?
What?
She's getting them off the ferry so she can sink it.
I didn't even think of that, but I was thinking maybe she's making sure they don't say anything, at least for a while.
No, she's saying, "Hey guys, come here. I've got money for you. Come." And there's a quote where like Hightower tries to take it, and she like speaks up, and so all the guys hear her and come down off the ferry
to receive their
coins.
Yeah.
And as soon as the last guy steps off,
yeah,
the ferry sinks.
Oops.
So the thing is, she couldn't sink the ferry with her power if they were with them on it.
Yeah, so they would break the
3rd oath.
Yeah.
Can you name the 3 oaths?
To say no word that is untrue.
Yeah.
To make no weapon with the power.
Yeah.
And to use the power, this one's a little more complicated, only in defense of your own life.
Or that of your order.
Yeah. Or against Shadowspawn or something like that.
Outlines every circumstance in which you can use the power as a weapon.
Yeah.
That was good. I always forget the second
better
one.
than I thought. Yeah, to make no weapon.
I think maybe they haven't made them in such a long time. They've totally forgotten how. So it's just
Probably because of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Why you're not going to retain a skill that you can't use.
It makes sense because you can do some awful things with the power to craft weapons for other people to use.
Oh, yeah.
We get to see in the Two Rivers later that scene where Varen is making, like, she's doing something to stones that they launch out of catapults so they explode when they hit something.
Oh, that's right. Maybe it was Alana and Varen.
Yeah, I think there's at least two.
Yeah.
There at that time, but I think there's some funny loophole where it's like, we're not making a weapon, like
Right,
this is
yeah.
just an exploding rock, and whatever you do with it, well,
Man, I don't remember that. Is it? But maybe it's against,
something along those lines.
or isn't it against Shadow Spawn?
Oh yeah, it is. It's against Trollocs.
So they don't have any problem.
NVM.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and do that. Yeah, it's Trollocs. So I mean, that is convenient that like Trollocs aren't people. We're fighting Trollocs and Shadow Spawn. We can kill them with impunity. Like when you fight robots in shows where it's just like, we're going to do all this gratuitous violence, but it's okay because they're robots.
Yeah.
You know?
They're not people.
They're not people. They're Trolloc. I always like to keep in mind that they are, human souls trapped.
Oh, so right after the scene with the coins, it's loose, Hightower screamed, and so the ferry's getting loose, and like, I guess the dock is breaking, or it's just being pulled by the river, like broken up.
Because there's a whirlpool.
And he says, no whirlpools on the Taren. Hightower sounded empty. Never been a whirlpool. An unfortunate occurrence. Moraine's voice was hollow in the fog that made her a shadow as she turned from the river. Unfortunate, Lan agreed. I just really like this.
Yeah, I can just see him like standing completely stone-faced in the back.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Unfortunate, Lan agreed in a flat tone. It seems you'll be carrying no one else across the river for a time. An ill thing that you lost your craft in our service. He delved again into his purse, ready in his hand. This should repay you.
Already ready, had the money ready to go, knew it was going to happen.
Like mobsters in this scene.
Totally.
What a shame.
They should make up for it. Oh, okay. So right before she created the whirlpool, there's a sentence I want to talk about.
Okay.
Is right after the last ferryman steps off, it says, the Aes Sedai stood looking at the river, though what she could see was beyond Rand. With a shiver, he hitched up his cloak, sodden as it was.
She's just staring at the river.
She's staring at the boat. She's channeling.
Mm-hmm.
She's creating the whirlpool here. And Rand shivers. And so I have to wonder if that's not just the chill of the wet cloak, but also him shivering due to her channeling.
It very well could be. I never noticed.
So I'm making a note of that now. Every time she that I know she's channeling, I'm trying to see, like near Rand, I'm trying to see what his reaction is. So far, he's either been cold or had a full cold hand or had the shivers or had the shakes. Like, I feel like it's been not as explicit as the goosebumps.
Yeah. This makes sense, though, because at this point, Rand doesn't know what's going on, so he's making these excuses like, oh, it's a cold night, or...
My cloak's wet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little too convenient. Yeah.
Why even put that in there?
Yeah. So it could be coincidence, but I'm keeping an eye out for it, and I'm bringing it up every time I see it.
That's good. No, that was a good observation. I didn't even notice that. Well, there's nothing further to hold us here, the Aes Sedai said, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened.
And then they take off and exit the mist. In the space of 3 paces, the heavy mist faded away to nothing. It's just knife edge sharp.
Yeah.
It's totally channeled mist. And just think about what Moraine's done here. She's controlled the weather, which a lot of the Aes Sedai talk about as being very difficult to bring up the fog.
Mm-hmm.
She's created a massive whirlpool and destroyed a dock and
She says at some point, no sister, or there aren't 10 sisters or something like that who could do something like that unaided.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we know she's packing an Angreal right now, but...
And she's not weak either.
No.
She's still pretty tired at this point. They've been going nonstop for 2 days.
Yeah.
She's been wiping away their fatigue. So she's been doing a lot of channeling on no sleep.
Right. I was just about to say she may or may not have slept at all
I think,
yet.
Yeah.
Since the night before Winter Night.
Right. because she was fighting, and then she heals Tam.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of channeling in this early little bit.
Yeah.
In 2 days period of time.
I'm trying to think of other points in the series where we see channelers get to their limits. The first thing that pops into my head are Perrin's Ashaman way later.
Yeah, and there's definitely a point where we see like the girls on the battlefield where like Elaine wears herself out in the last battle and becomes useless for a while.
Yeah.
They trick her into spending everything. It's she listens to Gareth Bryn, I think.
Oh, and he's under the influence.
Yeah,
of...
and he convinces them to wear themselves out. So the whole like White Tower is worn out at that point. But that's like, you know, a lot of battle and stuff like that. I'm trying to think about earlier. You know, obviously when they cleanse the source, they're all wiped out. Rand and Nynaeve are both
Yeah.
at the edge of their exhaustion. But in terms of normal channelers, not very often.
We don't see people wear themselves out that much.
No.
But it, you know, it's really dangerous, so people wouldn't want to be doing that anyway. I wonder what she feels like right now.
Oh yeah, I actually have the quote in here, was my next quote. There are not 10 women in Tar Valon who could do that unaided, not to mention from the back of a galloping horse. And I wondered about that. She said they couldn't do it unaided. Doesn't she have the Angreal? Isn't she aided?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there aren't 10 women who could do it unaided. Wait, was that?
Yeah, that's the phrasing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So makes me wonder if there's...
So she's implying that there are a few people who could.
Yeah. But I took it the other way, that there's only 10 people who could do it with the Angreal.
Oh.
But now that I think... I mean, that's not the way it's worded. Because just from what we know, Moiraine is probably in the top 10 women in the White Tower in terms of power.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You know, I would think she would definitely include herself in that 10.
And I like the rest of this exchange here after Moiraine says that. Basically, Moiraine explains what she did in masking a path that they're not taking, as opposed to the path that they are taking to fool the Dragcar and Myrddraal. And Tom seems impressed at the end. Probably don't need to read the whole thing, but Tom seems impressed at the end.
It's like a clever move on a Game of Stones board.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah.
She wasted a bunch of energy to cover a retreat that they're not taking, but anyone looking would have to assume that, like, why would she waste that much energy to cover? They must be going downriver.
Right. And then she covered up and downriver, I think. So,
oh, yeah, in both directions.
In both directions, which means it's definitely wasteful.
And she does say that this will force the Myrddraal to split his efforts, and now I'm wondering if she means to the left and to the right, as opposed to the... I'm not sure which way the river runs, but to the east and west, perhaps, the Myrddraal will divide his forces and try to chase them along the river. Yeah. But they're actually headed north.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's exactly how I took it, is that she's spreading it both up and down river, so the Myrddraal has to split his forces up and down river, but they're not even going on the river at all.
Right.
Yeah, so they're going in a third direction.
That is really clever. It's going to make the Myrddraal think like, well, she either went east or west, and she's covered both, so I'll just check both. What he probably won't think is that they're heading in a totally different direction.
Not to mention they're across the water, whereas like provides some safety, whereas the Vade will probably stay on his side and like check up and down the river on the one side without crossing over.
Yeah.
I also like how she talks to them and says, you know, you all want explanations, but if I explain my reaction to you, I would have no time for anything else. And I've kind of thought about that, and I'm like, you know, they're on the road for like weeks at a time. Surely she can have talk to them a little bit.
Yeah, but she doesn't want to.
No.
It's not going to do her any good to listen to their opinion.
No, not at all. But this sort of set me down the path of thinking about why Aes Sedai are so secretive. And I was thinking that possibly the first oath kind of leads to that, because if you can't lie about something, you don't even want to talk about something close to the subject of a secret that you're hiding.
Yeah.
And so I think so much of the Aes Sedai secretiveness comes from the fact that they just can't tell a bald-faced lie, so they have to be secret about everything, not just the secret they're trying to hide.
That makes sense.
It set me down that path of thinking about that first oath and how it affects Aes Sedai behavior and why they are so secretive and why they're so twisty with their words.
Well, that makes perfect sense because everybody lies all the time, you know?
Right. No, I don't.
There you go again. Yeah, that's a good point. If she were to sit down and start being truthful, she would have to say things like, I'm taking you to Tarvalon, and I don't know what the fuck is going to happen after that. I'm just hoping to keep you alive from the sisters. Like, they're Aes Sedai who would kill him on the spot, no questions.
Not even knowing if he was the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, even if they did.
Yeah.
They try to capture him. Oh, I can't wait till we get there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Lan leads the party to the little hollow, and the boys walk in and see Moiraine is already doing the little lesson with the queen to try to light up the stone. And she's successful with Moraine's coaching to just make the light shine once, just for a second.
Yeah, there was a little scene before that, when just like as they're getting off the horses, where Egwene sort of slumps against Bella and tired, and Rand's like, "Ha! Ha! See? I knew you were tired." And it's just like, it was such a like, really, Rand? Like, he sees Perrin, fall down and be tired, and he's like, "Yeah, that's okay. It's been a long day." He sees Egwene like sigh and like lean against her horse, and he's like, "Ugh, I can't believe she's coming along. She's ruining everything." Anyway, it was just a little like just his different reaction to what is almost the same thing between Egwene and Perrin.
Yeah, they're really like kind of adversarial. Even in I think the next chapter. Yeah, the next chapter too.
Yeah. Oh, they're like trying to catch every little mistake the other one makes, and like there's definitely they're
into
clashing.
each other.
I know.
I'm seeing a thing that I underlined also, like before they go into the hollow, that I just thought was a cool exchange. I'll just read it and we'll see what we want to keep as usual.
Yeah.
As they walk in, I think Rand like eyeballs Moiraine and Egwene because he's like nervous about this relationship and what that means, what that implies probably for his relationship with Egwene. She's going to go off and be an Aes Sedai potentially. I believe we see Moiraine say, "Child," Moiraine said gently, "only a very few can learn to touch the true source and use the one power. Some of those can learn to a greater degree, some to a lesser. You are one of the bare handful for whom there is no need to learn. At least, touching the source will come to you whether you want it or not. Without the teaching you can receive in Tarvalon, though, you will never learn to channel it fully, and you may not survive. Men who have the ability to touch Saidin, born in them, die, of course, if the Red Ajah does not find them and gentle them." Tom growled deep in his throat, and Rand shifted uncomfortably. Men like those of whom the Aes Sedai spoke were rare. He had only heard of 3 in his whole life, and thank the light, never in the 2 rivers.
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot to say about that.
There's a lot going on there.
There's an awful lot going on there. There's a whole lesson about the power, and she keeps throwing in stuff about the male half with Rand standing right there. And it's like, oh, and the male half of the source, looking over at Rand.
Right. She's speaking for Rand at that point.
I was going to say to Rand.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, she's looking at Egwene, but she's giving that information to Rand. I wrote this down when Egwene says, "I can become an Aes Sedai." I was like, "You're a wizard, Egwene."
And actually, you never will.
Never will.
Become Aes Sedai? Isn't she accepted, like, for...
Well, I mean, I guess when she becomes the Amyrlin, she is automatically
technically
becomes Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
That's how that law works, is the Amyrlin doesn't have to be Aes Sedai, but by becoming the Amyrlin, she automatically becomes Aes Sedai. The whole thing with the law and her being accepted.
Yeah.
And, they work around it. And then I like the little thing with Tom growling deep in his throat, because it's like, yep, that's Owen.
You would never know that if this was your first read-through, what's happening,
way.
what Tom is thinking.
No way, but he's clearly thinking about Owen.
Yeah. There's murder in Tom's mind right then.
Yeah.
He wants revenge.
Yep.
I mean, he already kind of got it.
I'm not sure he so much wants revenge as he's just like there to protect. He thinks that Rand is another channeler, and he thinks he can be there to protect him. Yeah. And he's, still pissed off at the Aes Sedai for what they did.
Yeah, for executing his nephew. It's kind of a big deal.
Well, because I guess they gentled him on the spot. I don't think they executed him.
Oh, you may be right. I think, yeah. I think you're right. I think they like out him as a channeler and gentle him, and then they just leave him, and the town lynches him or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. And then we've talked about this before, and then Tom goes back to Camelin, or Tom hears about it in Camelin and confronts Elida in Morgase's court. I think that was in one of the run-up episodes to episode 1.
The Third Age.
Yeah.
That was that episode. Episode 2.
So I think that would have happened. The incident with Tom's nephew would have happened like just a few years before this, or maybe only even a shorter amount, like a year.
Is it that soon? Yeah, I
I'd
guess
have to look at the timeline to be sure, but
right, because that's why he went to go see Owen, and then when he came back, that's when Queen Morghese threw him out of the city because he left without telling her.
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah. I think he heard about the trouble and he just bounces.
Totally. Yeah, his family's important.
Yeah. What a good guy.
A little thing in this part of the world, women who channel might become wisdoms of their villages. She's definitely referring to Nynaeve there.
Mm-hmm. And then you see really shortly afterwards where Moiraine's musing to herself again. She says, I don't have the quote in front of me, but she says to Egwene, like, to find you was very rare. To find several like you is unheard of. Egwene says, who? And she starts yelling out names and guessing, and Moiraine's like, I shouldn't have ever said anything.
That's in the next chapter.
Obviously, Nynaeve. Yeah, Moiraine would know. But she may know about some of the others, too.
I don't think so, because she does say to find 2 of you in a village is remarkable. She does use the number 2. So I think she, at this point, only senses those 2.
Probably.
But because I think a lot of the other ones can learn to channel, but she doesn't.
They have
can't
to be
sense
tested.
that. Yeah, you can't sense that until either they're about to change or they've practiced.
Now I'm wondering if Egwene calls it. I'd have to look back or look way later, but she starts guessing. Like, who else can channel? And she mentions one of the Elcar girls.
Oh, yeah, we should bring that up, because I bet she says...
Do you think she just guesses all of them?
I bet she does, because she knows them well enough. We'll check on that when we get to it, because I definitely want to know if she guesses correctly on those girls.
Oh, that might have been in the next chapter.
It's in the next chapter,
okay.
Yeah. The whole quote about the Angreal is only a tool, and it doesn't actually have the power. I sort of think of Angreals as like a lever.
Right.
It helps you push on one side, and that gives you the ability to sort of raise things up. So the longer the lever, the more you can move things, and that's sort of how I think of the more powerful an Angreal. It's not that you can channel more power, it's that you take the power you have, and you can do more with it.
Makes sense. Sure.
I don't know. That's just it's not really a great analogy, but...
No, it makes sense. Like a hammer. The hammer by itself, it doesn't have any power in it. It just extends your hand. It makes it longer, and it's got this heavy weight on the end of it.
Right.
It's basically a lever.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is.
So,
and a sledgehammer is a much bigger lever,
right.
And you can do a lot more damage with it. And then you had one more thing.
Yeah, we see the little scene... one last feeble flicker, and the stone was merely a bauble again. Rand held his breath. For a moment, Egwene continued to stare at the small stone, and she looked up at Moiraine. I thought I felt something, but perhaps you're mistaken about me. I've wasted nothing, child. A small smile of satisfaction flitted across Moraine's lips. That last light was yours alone. And I'm skipping over a couple things. The very last line is, you mean, with a cry of delight, Egwene threw her arms around the Aes Sedai. Oh, thank you. Rand, did you hear? I'm going to be Aes Sedai. And that's when I was like, no, you're not.
Well, did you pick up Moraine's response to her?
But that's good.
You may go far, perhaps even the Armelin seat one day, if you study and work hard.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
She calls it. Or maybe she's getting this idea right now, and she puts that idea into motion.
Oh, I mean, I think Egwene gets picked as an Aes Sedai because she gets picked as a puppet. They just
don't realize
that's
not going to work.
That's a mistake. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just another little bit of foreshadowing of someday you may be the Armelin seat. Well, yeah, you will.
Oh, I mean, we'll never know, but that could totally have been Moiraine working behind the scenes a little, because how far could Egwene have gotten without Swan's help? And Swan's Moraine's best friend. They're like two peas in a pod. I'm just wildly speculating.
No, totally. And Swan definitely has a role to play in picking Egwene.
Yeah.
She is working behind the scenes to make sure that she is picked.
So she's got Moiraine, at least in the beginning, and Swan to guide her later. And I just wonder how much collusion might have been between Moiraine and Swan.
I mean,
we'll never know, like I said, but
because Moraine's long gone through the Angreal at the point when Egwene gets selected.
But then I'm saying if Swan and Moiraine think this is a thing that should be done, and then it happens.
Yeah. I don't think it's something they talk about.
Yeah.
But it's a cool idea.
Yeah. It just popped into my head right now.
I wish the timeline added up better, but I can't.
Moiraine and Swan really only talk a few times through the whole series.
Yeah. I mean, Swan's basically...
Is it
They never talk.
Suan? That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah. They never talk after Suan gets deposed, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know if they even see each other.
Possibly like right before the last battle, but yeah. I mean, they see each other in Faldara, but that might be the last time they interact. And at that point, Suan is still Amerlin with no reason to think she won't be. And Egwene is barely even.
Sounds right.
But I think they, have similar thought patterns, and they're friends, and they have, same ideas. Great minds think alike, and all that.
Yeah, and tend to be able to make things happen against all odds.
Right. So yeah, that's all I've got for this chapter.
Yeah, I think that's 13 coming to a close.
But I like the discussions. Those actually, I've spent a lot of time reading those, and they interest me.
Yeah. I mean, that's where this whole podcast stems from, really, is me and Seth sitting on our couch talking, when we used to be roommates, sitting on our couch just having conversations like this.
Right. And now we do it in a little more structured way, and, we have the names in front of us, and we know which chapter we're talking about. But
Yeah.
It's basically, the conversations are remarkably similar. We go off on these tangents all the time.
It's easy.
Yeah. As you can probably guess.
The sitting and talking part is probably the easiest part of this.
Oh, definitely. It's certainly the most fun.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Although I will admit, a close second is definitely interacting with people online.
Yeah, it's very rewarding, I guess I should say. That anybody's listening, that people care enough to say anything about it, and just talk to us. It just, the fact that someone's enjoying this content that we're making.
There's a couple people who like our tweets every time they come out, and it's nice to see people paying attention.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or your favorite podcast client.